Welcome to this episode of the BMEN podcast. My name is Dr. Randy Whetstone Jr., your host and moderator, and we're really excited about this episode. This is the Doctoral Journey Part 2. And so in Part 1, we had the chance to hear from Dr. Aaron Rollins, Dr. Douglas Craddock Jr., and MD candidate Jonathan Taz. On this episode, I've got some great brothers who will give a fresh perspective about the doctoral journey. To my left is the one and only Jerron Jones, PhD candidate. His specialty is the perception of self-efficacy. To my right is Dr. Willie F. McBride III, neuropsychologist. And to his right is Dr. Christopher A. Jones, professor at Spalding University. Brothers, how y'all doing?
Man,
Doing well.
feeling good, man. Feeling good. Good to be here.
Good. I love it. I love it. So, the doctoral journey is one that is unique, to say the least. It's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. Dr. McBride, I'm going to come to you. When you hear doctor, what comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is, person in a white coat, medical doctors. That's what I've always kind of thought of and even wanted to be. And I thought, oh, that's what you have to be to become a doctor. But now, sky's the limit in terms of what it means to be a doctor. But truly, like, what it means is you're a critical thinker. You think, like, you have sharpened your mind to get to a point where, like, you're able to think on a different level. Oftentimes, like, people will be like, yeah, that makes sense, you're a doctor. When they come up to me and they hear me talk, or I'm talking to people, I'm like, it's just something about a person who is a doctor. I was talking to Jerron out in the hallway or out here earlier, and I was like, man, that's a doctor move. It's that critical thinking piece where it's like most people don't approach things like that. So when I think of a doctor now, I think of, like, the mind aspect of it, of, like, how do you think and how do you go about solving problems? Because that's what it takes to be a doctor.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about just your doctoral journey. How did you get to the place of, hey, I want to do a PhD and let alone complete the PhD?
Man, bumps in the road, figuring it out on my own. Both of my parents, high school graduates from Louisville. Mom went on to get her college degree later in life, but, like, the first one to go, like, straight through in undergrad. Like I said, I wanted to be a medical doctor, and I realized, man, like, one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life was saying that I didn't want to be a medical doctor anymore. Because I had been like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. Family was like, yeah, he's going to be the doctor. He's going to be the first doctor in his family. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like I'm an athlete going into the big leagues and stuff. And so there was a lot of pressure to just like, man, I got to make this work. And so I made a decision midway through my undergrad career to say, like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, I got to figure something else out. What else do I love? I had a mentor at University of Louisville, and it's crazy. I'm about to enter my senior year. No, spring semester, my senior year. I got all the credits I need. There's a class that comes up in clinical psychology, and it was with a black professor, black male psychologist. And I was like, I got to take that class. I already had the credits I needed. I'm overloading myself because I'm like, I got to take this class. And so I took that class. He took me under his wing. He said, these are the steps you need to do. And I was like, damn, like, clinical psychology. And so I never looked back after that, man. And I was like, I just had a clear path. I set my goals. And there's more to the story there, but, like, that was the culminating moment for me to be like, man, like, I really want to pursue this and go after that.
Yeah. Christopher, tell us, what was your doctoral journey like?
My doctoral journey was wonderful because I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about others. And I learned how to, as my brother just stated, think more critically. As a doctoral student, you have to become a critical thinker. From a reading standpoint, you have to become a critical thinker. From a reflective thinking standpoint, you have to become a critical thinker in your writing. And you also have to practice self-care in that process. Because you need to be able to reflect during that process as well. And so what I learned about myself through the process is that I had to think more scholarly. I was not trained in undergraduate studies or even graduate studies to think scholarly, to write from an academia standpoint. And so that was a tool that I needed to possess that I didn't have. And so as I read empirical data, as I read journals, as I read books, and as I work with mentors, they helped me to navigate those waters. And so my obligation to myself was to pay it forward once I got finished.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've done, and that's what I will continue to do. So I appreciate my experience was challenging, but it was rewarding. My mother actually went to law school and got a JD, and then she also went back to school and got a EDD. So I said, if my mother can do two doctoral degrees, I can at least do one. And so that was my lighthouse. Because when I worked in the public school system, and I would share with the students, because I worked in a lot of Title I schools, they couldn't believe that they saw a black doctor because I didn't have a white coat and I wasn't prescribing medications, because there's multiple types of doctors. But awareness is very critical. Because a lot of people in marginalized communities are not aware of what they can become because they don't see it. And so the doctoral journey gave me access that I would not have been afforded without that piece. Also.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, Will, when you first heard the term doctor, you thought about someone in a white coat. And probably for most of society, that's what most people think, right? I had an experience, I think it was my birthday. I checked in. I don't know what the lady saw, but she said, "Oh, you're a doctor? What do you do? What kind of physician are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm not that type of doctor, right?" And so there's a variation, PhD, EDD, PhD, EDD. So I'm going to come back to you, Christopher. Why did you make the decision to get a doctorate of education as opposed to other types of doctoral degrees?
The reason why I chose the EDD program was because at Spalding University, my alma mater, their program was geared towards leadership, and their program was geared towards interdisciplinary leadership. So that means it's leadership across any organization. So whether it was a PhD or EDD, my dissertation process was the same, but it was more practical application. But we also took the same classes. I had to write a dissertation. I did a mixed method study. And so I chose the program based on what I wanted to do in terms of leadership across the country. Not because EDD sounds better than PhD or PhD sounds better than EDD. I did what suited my purpose.
Love that, love that. Jerron, I'm going to come to you. So talk a little bit about your doctoral journey. You've been working on this doctorate of philosophy. How's it been?
Yeah, it's been great overall. When you ask that question to Will, it's kind of emotional because life be lifing, man. So for me, it's like, and Will, you don't think you know this, and Christopher, no, you don't. But like about a month ago, I had an unfortunate incident that happened in my neighborhood where some young men just happened to one early morning break into cars. And when my vehicle was one of the cars they broke into and stole my laptop with my dissertation on there, right? And blessedly, I was able to get that laptop back and convert hard drives to a new laptop. But just thinking about like being resilient in that process, you know what I mean? So loaded question, right? But I think for me, everything that I've been through in terms of stolen laptop, I've had kids within the process of my dissertation journey. I've had failed relationships with women. I've written for 6 months straight, took 2 months off, right? And so just everything that I think about in terms of what has kept me to be motivated has been really just being around you guys, right? Seeing how you guys maneuver in professional settings, seeing your work ethic, seeing how you guys are super accountable. And the one thing I appreciate about you guys is when you ask me about the process, it's never, well, when are you finished? It's how is it going? Which for me, that means a lot because, you know, for people to ask me when is it done, it's like, well, it's not that cut and dry. You know what I mean? There's a process to it that's the ebbs and flows, it's ups and downs, it's highs and lows. And so, but I think on the, like when I'm finished, you know, in the next few months, I'm going to rejoice because again, I think all the odds have been against me, not just being a black man, but just life's obstacles in general. And so I think for me, I think about all the ingredients that I've been able to mix together to be who I am today, to become a doctor, which is resiliency, it's grit, it's consistency, it's perseverance, right? It's funny, the very first meeting I had with at the time at Bellarmine was Dr. Fred Rhodes. He was kind of the dean of education. And so he would do all the interviews for prospective doctoral students. And he, you know, everybody who I was up against as far as being in the program were like, you know, your assistant vice presidents of education programs. So he was like, you know, you're a therapist. Like, what makes you want to get a PhD in higher ed? Like, you don't even have a higher ed background. And so I love him for mentioning that because for me, that was like, I don't really care about titles. I know what I can do from an academic perspective, right? I know how intelligent I am. And so when I did end up getting accepted to the program, it's like, I can do this thing. And it was funny because I applied for Bellarmine's doc program twice. The first time was a social justice program years ago. And I got accepted, but at that time in my life, I wasn't ready to like I was doing like coaching youth basketball, had an AAU program, also DJ. So I was doing a bunch of DJ events and there was extra money, but I wasn't ready to like give up on those duties to be in debt for the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, right? So the first time that I applied for the program, Randy, I declined. And I'm like, man, should I have started? Like, my life ain't really fulfilled because I was working second shift, and that's the worst, 2 to 10. So I'm like, I want to do something that's self-fulfilling, but also in a more controlled educational setting. So I applied the very next year to the higher ed program at Bellarmine, got accepted, and my thought process was like, man, what is the odds of someone being accepted twice in a doctoral program, let alone the first time? And so, you know, something just told me, man, go for it. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, at least you can say you attempted it. And so, yeah, I'm here. Hopefully December will be the month that I defend and finish, and then I'll be able to walk next spring.
Yeah. What's been your biggest inspiration?
My kids. The ability to leave a legacy, right? And so what I'm doing now with my education, with the program piece, it's bigger than who I am as a person. I've got a son who's 14 and a daughter who's 2, right? And so knowing my son will be, you know, hopefully a college student in the next coming years, and then seeing my daughter just go through her upbringing has been my biggest motivation. It's like, you know, if I was to stop now and just give everything up, I couldn't justify it. I couldn't say this is the reason why I quit. And knowing how they are sponges, everything that I do, they see, they hear, and they're not super verbal about how proud they are of me, but I can see it in their actions, right? And how most children are. So I think that being the first generational doctoral student in my family has been a huge motivation piece. You know, it's funny. I don't come from a family of educators or individuals with terminal degrees. And so the way they converse with me about my process is it's weird. It's not like no one ever asked me, Jerron, you like, how's school going? What are you going to school for?
Why would they?
They just know I've been in school forever. It's like, man, you still in school? Yep.
Yeah.
And that's it. My mom, you know, I love her to life, but we don't have those conversations about my process. And it's not because she doesn't care, but in her upbringing, she was taught when you turn 18, you get a blue-collar job. You have children now, you work.
Yeah.
You provide for your family.
Yeah.
So being around you guys that I can have those doctoral conversations with about being the lone man on the island, that's what motivates me as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can kind of be like a foreign language.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
family, absolutely. Go ahead.
Can I jump in real quick? So, like, let me just say this. So, for those of you all who see this podcast, what Jerron started with, what you started with, man, like, I didn't know that about the laptop.
Yeah.
Man, my life would have flashed before my eyes. Like seriously. Like, for those of y'all don't understand, like, that's that man's whole life. Life. Metaphorically speaking, you know, just from the standpoint of like the time and effort, and like I feel for you, man.
Yeah.
Like I had a reaction to that, man, because like people don't understand the grind.
Yeah.
Like to what you're saying about your mom, like my mom, like I was in Norfolk, Virginia, Hampton Roads area, so it's like 12 hours away from Louisville. And I call her, tell her, like, you know, hey, I'm working on this. She's like, all right, well, good luck. You got it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm flying higher than she's ever been. She's like, you flying on the wing, you know? So it's like people really don't understand. And like, so wait, when are you done? Wait, how much more time you got to be there? So wait, what's next? What's a dissertation? Well, you'll get it done. And it's like, no, y'all don't understand, man.
I had no idea.
Y'all don't understand. It's a grind. It's a grind.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think separates a lot of people, there are people out here that I meet on a day-to-day basis that I know are smarter than me. Intellectually, just knowledge-wise, could beat me around the block in Jeopardy and all kinds of stuff. But the thing that separates people from getting those doctorates, man, is that discipline and that grind.
Yep.
You got to grind, man. There'll be days where it's like, I don't want to write.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Your boys call you up, hey, man, like we about to go happy hour. We're going to go do this. Man, I really got to sit down and write.
And guess what? It's so easy not to write.
Yes,
right?
man.
You say, oh, it's 95 degrees outside. I'm going to go get ice cream. I'm going to write tomorrow. Well, tomorrow turns into next week, and you be like, man, it's been 2 weeks, and I haven't got anything accomplished. Yeah. So like you said, having that routine, which I have a really good routine now, which I try to spend at least 2 or 3 hours every day doing something towards dissertation. Whether it be rereading my chapters 1 through 3 and get familiar with the lit review and maybe some questions that I'll be asked by my committee, or just looking at other articles that are newer research. So I think for me, it's like, all right, I know for this time during the day, I'm cutting everything off. I might not text Doc back for 2 or 3 hours, right? Just trying to be more present into what I'm doing that's going to benefit me and my family.
Yeah, and those are some of those soft skills that are transferable really in anything that you do, right? I want to come back to something that really Jerron and Will, both of you alluded to, and it's how the family doesn't understand this process or this journey. My granddaddy, he was Pawpaw. He was my biggest cheerleader. He was always on the hotline. Christopher calling family all across the city in Alabama. We gonna have a doctor. First doctor in the family. Pawpaw knew nothing else. Knew nothing else. For him and Grandma, getting a high school diploma was like the apex, right? And so what can we say? There's somebody listening, a doctoral student, a mother, a father, an uncle, a guardian. Somebody's listening right now. What can we say to a family, specifically a black family, for them to understand how to support a doctoral student?
That's a fantastic question, because I feel like in my household, although I was raised primarily by my mother my entire life, I was able to develop a strong, wonderful relationship with my father over time, and especially into my adult life. And I'm grateful for him as well in his passing. But my father, he had some college, but he didn't graduate from college, and he lived vicariously through me. Every degree I got, from associates to bachelor's to master's, to doctoral degree and to dissertation defense. I mean, he was there. He was my cheerleader. And so there would be many times during the coursework that we got to interact. But during the writing phase, I had to shut it down because we would go to dinner on Sundays. That was our thing during the coursework phase. But when it was dissertation phase, I had to shut it down completely. And so my full-time job plus writing at night and writing on the weekends. So basically, I changed my sleep pattern to where I'd work for the public school system. I would get to work about 8:30, get off at 4, come home, have dinner, rest a little bit, go to bed about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I would get up about 3 o'clock in the morning and start writing and be fresh Monday through Friday. And then when I came in on Friday, I shut it down until Monday. I didn't go anywhere until Monday. I'm not taking that many calls. I'm researching, I'm writing, I'm doing journals, reading journals, getting articles, etc.
Yeah.
Because it was a grind.
Yeah.
It was a grind. And so I had to transcribe my data. I had to collect my data. I had to conduct interviews, all that. And so the power of no is very powerful, because when your no's are as strong as your yeses, then people appreciate those yeses. That's number one. And then how can family members support you? Just tell them to encourage you. Encouragement. Don't ask me too many critical questions. Just encourage me. I see you doing it. I'm proud of you. I love you. I know that it's not. I know it's not me right now that you can spend time with, but know that if you need me, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Just encourage me in your way, whatever that is. Just pat me on the back, but just say affirm what I'm doing, even though you don't understand what I'm doing at that highest level. But you know I'm not wasting time.
Right.
Yeah.
So just affirm what I'm doing and encourage me.
Yeah.
In your way.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You said that level. Perfect segue to my next question. Talk about the struggle you all have had with, I'm now Dr. McBride, I'm now Dr. Jones, I'm about to be Dr. Jones, and your thinking is elevated in a way that is very different than your average U.S. citizen. Talk about the struggle you have, because we're staying with family, and I love this. Talk about the struggle that you have when you go to dinner. It's that cookout. It's a holiday, and you see maybe the state of a family member, and it bothers the heck out of you. Because your thinking has evolved so much, your mind has expanded so much. Talk about the struggle of seeing that cousin, that auntie, that uncle, mama, daddy, whoever, when it's like, damn, I want this for you, but it's like you just might always be in this place in terms of how you think. Doc, talk about that struggle.
Yeah, so I'll start it off too. So, and to add to your other question too, I think it would be important for families to just take an interest in some aspect of what we're doing. And to what you're saying, like, I know you're not going to know what a clinical neuropsychologist is. I'm getting a degree so that you don't have to worry about that stuff. But to take an interest in some aspect of it, like, for Jerron on his dissertation, okay, when's the proposal? So what's next? Just like one aspect of it, to just kind of figure out, just so that I know I'm not just checking in. Because, for me, I was 12 hours away. I was by myself. I was in a completely different state, figuring out on my own, and it would have been nice sometimes to be like, hey, how's your therapy? Like, because I had to do therapy. I'm in these places talking to people about traumatic stuff. Hey, how are you doing? how was therapy going with those kids, you know? And of course, I'm not telling them, disclosing confidential, you know, information, but it's like, I got to have an outlet to talk about some of this stuff to somebody. I just heard a lot of stuff going on with this kid in this session. Man, now I got to go home and work on this dissertation, and I don't have anybody to check in with. So check in on your kids, the doctoral students, whether they're an engineer. How's that patent going? You know, how are you making that machine that you've been working on? How's that chemistry going? Did you figure out that molecular, you know, just take an interest in some kind of aspect of it. How's your leadership class? Are they listening to you? You know, are they following your orders? Or are they taking, you know, so that we know that, like, hey, you give a damn, you know, and we know you do, and we know that it's like, man, this is tough, but that means a lot, you know, to be able to say, like, man, like, you listened when I told you that my proposal is coming up, and you're like, how did it go? You know, you listen when I told you I got to submit all these applications for interviews. But to your question, repeat the question for me.
The struggle that you see with family, you know, there's so much, you know, critical thinking growth that happens.
Yeah.
You know.
So I would say, I think for us, and even for Jerron as a mental health professional, like, you got 3 mental health professionals here, I think of it as no different than going back to the medical doctor analogy, when, let's say I'm an orthopedics doctor or I'm a foot doctor, and I notice somebody's limping or they're kind of walking awkwardly on the foot. It's like, you might have some shin splints, or you might have twisted your ankle, 6 months ago, because I can see the way you're walking kind of uneven or steady. We can see that as mental health professionals as well. We can notice when people say things and it's like, they made a comment that was kind of interesting. And so it's like, I see things going on when people don't even are acknowledging it or verbalizing it. And it's hard sometimes to kind of sit on my hands to not say anything, because sometimes it's like people are not ready to hear, like, hey, you might need to go see a therapist, or you might need to go see a psychologist. I think you need to go talk to somebody or something. Oh, I don't have time. Do you really not have time? Because I know that you go gambling a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because then I'm gonna start pointing out all of the contradictions, because I'm a critical thinker, and it's like, but that doesn't add up, and that doesn't add up, and so it becomes I have to be mindful of that. Like, I have this knowledge, and I could weaponize it, and it could. Well, you just think you better than me because you're a doctor, and you just think you know everything because you doctor. But it's like, but I do know a lot. Yeah, and I have to fight family, even in my own subject area, about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I literally went to school to become an expert at this. Like if I don't know anything else, I know this. And so it becomes, it feels lonely sometimes, because you feel like nobody else is listening. And you feel like, why can I not help my own family, especially in the Black family, where it's like, we have all these traumas. We have all of these generational mental health traumas and educational traumas and things, and it's like, yo, like, there's so much more that we can, like, I'll help you get there. You ain't got to become a doctor like me, but I'll help you get there. I will be there to help you. So that's me personally. That's how I be feeling sometimes.
So, Jerron, I'm gonna come to you really quick. If family members have an inferiority complex because that family member is the doctor, and whatever, you know, idea or opinion they have, what do we do to kind of cater to that experience and that relationship with a family member?
Yeah, so for me, man, I that cliche saying that there's one in every family. Well, in my family, there's probably like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 in one environment in my family that enjoy drinking heavily, right? They can't go to a function and have a couple of them and just get a buzz. They're drinking to get drunk. And so, for me, man, I truly believe on meeting people where they are. And there's a bunch of nuances to that piece, right? And so I actually enjoy going to family functions and turning my professional academic side off, right? So to the support piece with the family, I don't think I truly care about if they ask me about when their proposal is. I just want to be a normal family member. Let's not even talk school right now, right? And don't think I know everything as a future doctor. and a current doctoral student, right? Because I feel like that is a role that I don't want to play in that moment if it's just about having fun, right? And so, you know, for me, it's really, and for me, it's like understanding the deep rootedness of my dynamic of my family, right? And so knowing that in my immediate family, you know, a lot of my mom for sure and her siblings, they grew up in a single parent home, and so, which was with my grandfather. And so knowing how there's still some resentment from my mom and her siblings towards my grandmother, I then begin to understand of those dynamics that may come out in a family situation, a family setting, a family gathering. You know, such and such doesn't speak to this person because of X, Y, Z that happened 20 years ago. So I think my role genuinely is to say, let me be the mediator in the sense, right? Let's all collectively figure out how we can healthily build this relationship, as opposed to holding these grudges that you've held for 20 plus years. And that old Jay-Z saying, like, nobody wins when the family feuds. And I mean, that's true, right? And so I think I've accepted within the last 2 years in my family is to say, hey, like, and people come to me with mental health questions all day long, with identifying resources for the children or themselves as it relates to mental health. And I never have a problem connecting resources, but then I always challenge them, all right, if I connect you with X, Y, and Z resource, like, what are you doing as an individual to make sure you utilize their resource and then you sustain whatever it is you need, right? Mm-hmm. And so I challenge them in that sense. And in my family, there is no doctors, so I'm going to be that person that everybody probably relies on for a lot of information, knowledge, just to have an answer for something, right? Yeah. We're coming up on our time, brother. So I wanna end with some fun, some humor, but keep it real. Keep it real. Yeah. So a question that I developed here in 10 seconds or less. Give me your thoughts on the earned doctorate versus honorary doctorate. Ooh. Dr. Jones, 10 seconds or less.
10 seconds or less.
5
fake
seconds.
or real?
Fake or real? All right, Will.
It's a cute gesture. That's what I think it is.
All right, Jerron.
10 seconds or less. Pissed, highly upset, discouraged, slighted. A few words to come to mind. And I've earned this. They did not. Right? So, yeah, I feel slighted.
Yeah. And there's nothing against the great people who do great work, great service work. But my pet peeve, don't use the prefix if it's not earned. Because it's a slap in the face to everything you just heard on this episode with what it takes to actually be a real doctor. Mm-hmm. And so that's it for part 2 of the doctoral journey. Brothers, I want to thank you all again. Thank you. Mm-hmm. You all are wonderful, fantastic, and I hope our listeners learned just a little bit more about what this doctoral journey is like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.